you needed to build a team. Once you've kind of got the lay of the land and said, this is where we're at, this is the vision, this is the mission. How do I assemble the right team and fill the roles in this organizational structure? What were some of those first roles that you decided we've got to hire these people, we've got to have this in place if we're going to get there?
Yeah. Well, one of the unique things about Charity Water and what I loved and love about it is we never had this kind of obvious organizational structure that would match another charity. And part of that was because we were disrupting charity, and you have somebody like Scott Harrison who doesn't come from charity. You have somebody like me who comes from fashion. And so that allowed us to think about how we built the team in a new way. And I think in general, no matter what environment you're operating in, bringing a new perspective to it is really, I think, an important way of seeing what are we missing or what's a new way to solve this problem. And so within Charity Water, our greatest strength from the beginning and continues to be was our brand and our ability to tell stories. And that was because we knew, when you go back to your mission and vision and think about how does the team line up to that, we knew that it didn't matter how big the water crisis was, and it didn't matter how amazing our programs were. If people didn't know about it, if people weren't called upon and inspired to support it, we wouldn't make the dent that we knew was possible in the water crisis. And so that meant our organizational structure and the people that we hired needed to really embody that mission and the vision. And so when I came in, we had an amazing creative team. Some of the first folks that Scott hired were creatives and storytellers. We didn't have any fundraisers. So when I started to come in, it was kind of looking at, okay, what are the deltas now between our strengths and the opportunities we're missing? And a lot of times at that stage of growth, the company was, under 20 employees, under $10 million in revenue. You've kind of had this like growth trajectory that was like a rocket ship, but all really based around this grassroots movement and around everybody kind of working, as many hours a day as possible. And when we looked at hiring, we said, okay, well, what's going to get us to the next level? So what type of professionalism do we need? For me, that's a lot of like connecting the dots between different teams and connecting the dots between how we communicate. So some of the first hires were in project management. It was a really important kind of through line at Charity Water, which was how do we make sure what we're doing in the field lines up with what we're talking to our donors about, lines up with what our finance team knows, and really kind of that building that connective tissue of the organization. And then we also started to hire really specialized people at that point. You've proven the theory, you have a lot of traction, and now it's about, okay, who's going to go from being the generalist to being super focused? So instead of everybody producing the gala in the organization, who's the person who's the event producer, right? So that was the kind of change as the organization was passing that maturity kind of chasm.
Yeah. If you just have a room full of creatives, you can make some really cool stuff, but will it ever get done on the right timelines?
Will it ever get done? Yeah.
Reach the right people? So that's really cool. You came in with that operational brain, got that 30,000-foot view, and you were able to see all of the moving parts and what needed to happen in order to get to that vision, which is incredible. So you've got the organizational structure. You're starting to build this team. What did the day-to-day look like to kind of reverse engineer the goal?
Yeah, well, so first of all, I really believe in an agile organizational structure and an agile mentality when it comes to building a company, especially today's companies, which are fast-paced and oftentimes lean and oftentimes, changing with the economy and the market around us, which is rapid speed, as we all know. And so what I like to do is pay constant attention, kind of always have 10% of my brain on like, how are we operating right now? So there's no same day to day because you're always kind of paying attention to what's happening in the moment and how does that line up with our goals. And so a lot of times that's kind of looking at roles and departments and thinking, you know what, this made a lot of sense to have project management live in creative in the beginning, but now we really need this production skill set over in our programs team. How do we help them become more efficient and how do we help them build better systems and processes to help their program scale? So there's a kind of nimbleness that I think has been really important and was always a part of my mentality and thinking about the company. I think the other side is really about amazing communication. I am known for over communicating. I think in and companies that are growing fast and changing and have big, bold visions and big, bold, visionary founders. It's about how do we ensure that everybody is coming along and that we're incorporating feedback and moving together. And so for me, that's about lots of communications in person, communication in town hall meetings where we're addressing big goals, communications in the, in between the meetings and in the one-on-ones, just like lots and lots of keeping people informed and collecting that feedback. And I'd say the third thing that's always been really important to me is not to immediately solve a problem with a title. So what I mean by that is, as we were growing, a lot of times we'd be like, we have a huge problem with marketing. Our brand is amazing, but we haven't reached enough people. How are we going to reach more people? Well, a marketer reached more people. Well, we need a marketer. We need a senior marketer. We need a chief marketer. And we would go through that, for every function, every time you kind of ran into a problem. And I think that's a common knee-jerk reaction to, we have a delta in our organization. How do we fill it? And no surprise, that can lead to a really bloated organization with a lot of hires. And B, if you haven't really done the work of figuring out what type of marketer do we need? How much experience do they have? What type of experience do they have? Not just writing the job description, but really thinking about how does this role interact in our unique environment? Because all of our environments are unique. That was a really important part of my role in the COO capacity as it related to the organizational structure and hiring, was really thinking about what type of finance person do we need? What stage of the company are we in? And how do we make sure we really hire the right person? And frankly, that means sometimes you have to go through the mistake of hiring the wrong person and learning what it looks like to operate in your company at that time, in that stage of growth. So that was really important to me, is really dissecting roles and functions and understanding what do we need today and how does that get us closer to the goals that we're achieving.